We are back and we are on chapter 9. And before we get started, I have some good news. Are you ready for some good news? In this unit, we are combining two chapters. We are combining chapter 9 and chapter 10 because both chapters deal with and explain the same topic. Chapter 9 is called How to Use the Will, and chapter 10, Further Use of the Will. So both chapters are pertaining to and discussing our will or willpower. So before we get started, this is principle number 6, the will. So like always, right on top of this chapter 9 and chapter 10, principle number 6 is what? Our will. Or our will, or what we call sometimes as a nickname, our willpower. This is principle number 6, and this involves chapter 9 and 10. So let's dive right into chapter 9, and let's get rocking. Right away he says, to set about getting rich in a scientific way, you do not try to apply your willpower to anything outside yourself. Listen to this. To set about getting rich in a scientific way, you do not try to apply your willpower outside yourself. Now, Wallace, he gives an excellent example of this, but even in personal achievement, personal development, so many people, they go to seminars. Now, don't take what I'm saying to the extreme, because I teach seminars, I attend seminars myself. So I'm not in any way kind of saying anything negative about seminars. The mistake that people make in personal achievement, they're always looking outside themselves. They're always looking for some outside secret, external from themselves. They do this across the board in every single industry. I mean, health is a fantastic example of this. In health, people are always looking for an outside entity to get healthy, to lose weight. What's that magic pill? Where's that magic formula? What's this magic herb I can take? They're always looking outside themselves rather than within. It's about looking within us. Make sense? Let's continue. Let's continue on what Wattles is saying about not looking outside of ourselves. He says, you have no right to do so anyway. It is wrong to apply your will to other men and women in order to get them to do what you want done. So now he's taking it a little bit deeper. So I bet you kind of have an example, or you can think of something even for yourself that you have done. Let's keep on going because I need to kind of dig a little bit deeper to see what he's really talking about. It is as flagrantly wrong to coerce people by mental power as it is to coerce them by physical power. Listen to this. It is wrong to coerce people by mental power to coerce them by physical power. Listen, he continues. If compelling people by physical force to do things for you reduces them to slavery, listen to this. By compelling people by physical force to do things for you reduces them to slavery, well, compelling them by mental force accomplishes exactly the same thing. It's the same thing, no matter if you're applying physical force or mental force. It's the same thing, the same philosophy. He continues, the only difference is the method. If taking things from people by physical force is robbery, then taking things by mental force is also robbery. In principle, there is no difference. See, he's saying in principle, there's no difference. Ever using physical force or mental force. They both mean the same thing. Might be different examples, but in principle, they mean the same thing. He says, you have no right to use your willpower upon another person, even, listen to this, even for his own good. Because you do not know what is good for him or her. See, when we get involved, especially relationships, when we get involved with relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, I mean, when you really observe relationships, and I'm not in any way saying I'm a relationship master or expert, but just by pure observation, one or the other is really trying to control the other person. Sometimes both, but it's usually one or the other is trying to control that relationship or control that person. Sometimes it's by physical force, which is against the law, but most of the time, it's by mental force. Makes sense? And Wattles is saying here, physical, mental. Now, they're different scenarios, different things, but in principle, it's the same thing. The science of getting rich does not require you to apply power or force to any other person. Listen to this. The science of getting rich does not require you to apply power or force to another person in any way whatsoever. He's talking about getting what you want. There is not the slightest necessity for doing so. Indeed, any attempt to use your will upon others will only tend to defeat your purpose. Listen, any attempt to use your will upon others will only tend to defeat your own purpose. See, it's kind of coming back to you give and you receive. You reap what you sow. Make sense? See, when I say give and receive, we always look at it as a materialistic thing. We always look at it as a money concept. Or you give money, you receive money. But see, give and receive goes much more deeper than a materialistic idea. I'll say it one more time. Any attempt to use your will upon others will only tend to defeat your purpose. Why? Because that's what you're giving, that's what you put your attention to, that's exactly what's coming back to you. See how all these laws are working, intertwining between each other? He continues, the thinking substance is friendly to you and is more anxious to give you what you want than you are to get it. Listen, the thinking substance is friendly to you and is more anxious to give you what you want than you are to get it. He's saying the universe is friendly to you. It wants you to have abundance. It wants you to have more than what you think you even know about it. I mean, that's kind of a tongue twister, but that's exactly what he means. He says, to get rich, you need only to use your willpower upon yourself. See, now we're talking about willpower. Just the will or willpower. He says that to get rich, you need only to use your willpower upon yourself. It's know thyself. The more you know yourself, the more you're honest with yourself, the better you will become. It's using your own willpower upon yourself, not to other people, as far as mental control, or yet worse, physical control, or you're searching for some type of outside entity. When you know what to think and do, you must use your will to compel yourself to think and do the right things. See, now he's talking about willpower. He's getting kind of like nitty gritty on what to do, how to do it. This is where it comes in. The key of the whole concept. When you know what to think and do, you must use your will to compel yourself to think and do the right things. It's willpower. Without willpower, our mind just wanders. I know my mind. I mean, it's just as easy for me to think negative as it is for you. But what's the difference? See, the difference is I'm always studying. I'm always developing what? I'm always developing my willpower. It's willpower to think positive. It's willpower to stay on course to your dreams, desires, passions, and goals in life. It's your willpower. How bad do you want it? It's your will. And he continues, that is the legitimate use of your will in getting what you want. That is the legitimate use of your will in getting what you want. You use your own willpower upon yourself. Stop focusing outside. Stop focusing on what other people. Stop focusing on outside entities. Stop being so focused on what other people are doing. Use your willpower upon yourself. And he says, you use your willpower to use it in holding yourself in the right course. Use your will to keep yourself thinking and acting in a certain way. Listen to this. Use your will to keep yourself thinking and acting in a certain way. See, willpower is a very powerful word. And when we talk about willpower, see, this is where, habit, studying over and over and over again, taking action, this is where it becomes difficult. Because remember, people want something for nothing. They want something easy. In health, people want to lose weight, but they don't want to go to the gym and exercise and stay physically fit or stay physically active. They want to take a magic pill, a magic potion, a magic herb so they lose weight. See, it doesn't exist. See, that's why most people are not in shape. I think right now, the stats in health in the United States, now I know it's in the United States, I don't know if it's across the world yet, so forgive me, I could be mistaken. But 1 out of 3 people are considered obese, are considered out of shape. 1 out of 3 people. Wow. And Wallace says, use your will to keep yourself thinking and acting in a certain way. See, this is where work comes in. This is work. This isn't something for nothing. You have to have a strong willpower. You have to develop it. It's not going to be easy. Are you going to fail sometimes? Yes. Are you going to think negative? Yes. But it's how quickly you can turn it around. See, that's why I say, know thyself. Be honest with yourself. Because only when you're honest with yourself, when you catch yourself thinking in the wrong way, that's the first step. You catch it. You're aware of it. Then once you're aware of it, you can change it. Let's continue. He says, use your mind to form a mental image of what you want and to hold that vision with faith and purpose. Use your will to keep your mind working in the right way. The more steadily and continuously your faith, remember faith, what? Faith equals belief. The same 2 words mean the same thing. I'll read it again. The more steadily and continuously your belief and purpose, the more rapidly you will get rich because you will make only positive impressions upon formless substance. You will not neutralize or offset them by negative impressions. See, that's why it's so powerful to stay in a positive zone, not to flow off into the negative. And even negative, you might think you're not a negative person, but I can guarantee you, probably all through the day, you're continuously thinking about what you don't like, what you dislike. I don't like this. I don't like this person. I don't like how this is going. So you always think about what you don't like. And I can easily fall into this trap. Even for me, I get off studying. I get off of my routine. I mean, that's how easy it is. How easy it is to think negative, how natural it is to think negative. Our mind just wants to wander. That's why it's very important. That's why personal development, personal achievement is very, very, very important. To have a daily routine, a daily studying routine. Even if you don't have time to view this whole unit at one time, because I know some units are long, some units are 15, 20 minutes, some units are an hour. Pause it and come back to it. But keep a consistent study routine. I'll read it one more time, and this is powerful. The more steadily and continuously your faith, your belief, and purpose, the more rapidly you will get rich because you will make only positive impressions upon the formless substance. It's making only positive impressions upon your formless substance. You will not neutralize or offset them by negative impressions. And on page 60, Wallace again pulls out a verse from the Bible. He says, and this is directly from the Bible, the New Testament, and Jesus said this, he says, all the promises are unto them that believe and unto them only. And he says this, he says, notice how insistent Jesus was upon this point of belief. Now you know the reason why. See, you have to start looking at the Bible as a spiritual teaching, not to get, so many people get, oh my God, but they're not learning and growing. All these universal laws, Jesus taught in the Bible. He says, all the promises are unto them that believe. What's belief? Having faith, belief. You believe in your dreams and goals, passions, and desires in your life. And he says, and unto them only. Then Wallace deters a little bit. Because what he's doing in this chapter, he's talking about will and willpower. That's our willpower to stay on course. But then he's starting to combine all the other chapters into one. He says, and he reminds us, he's brought this up in other chapters. He reminds us, do not talk about poverty. Do not investigate it or concern yourself with it. Never mind what causes it. You have nothing to do with them. What concerns you is the cure. Listen to this. This is profound. It's deep. He says, do not talk about poverty. Do not investigate it or concern yourself with it. Never mind what causes it. You have nothing to do with them. All you're concerned about is the cure of poverty. See, we get too tied up in things. We focus on things. What we focus on, we bring about. See, he's saying, do not talk about it. Do not concern yourself with it. Do not investigate it. Do not research it. All you're concerned about is the cure. And he continues several paragraphs down on the same topic. He says, what tends to do away with poverty is not the getting of pictures of poverty in your mind. Listen to this. This is exactly what I just said to remind you of. What tends to do away with poverty is not the getting of pictures of poverty in your mind, but getting pictures of wealth into the mind of the poor. See, we're focused on poverty. Even today, we're focused on poverty. We're focused on all these charitable contributions, and all they do is continuously put poverty consciousness, poverty pictures in our mind. And what Wallace is telling us, he says, do not talk about poverty. Don't investigate it. Don't research it. Don't fill up your mind with it. All you're concerned about is to cure poverty. And he's saying the cure of poverty is not putting the mental pictures of poverty in your mind or other people. He says the cure is putting the mental pictures of wealth into other people. That's the cure, is mental pictures of wealth. The cure is the science of getting rich, as Wallace is taking us through. And he says, to get rich is the best way you can help the poor. Listen to this. To get rich is the best way to help the poor. The only way in which poverty will ever be banished from this world is by getting a large and constantly increasing number of people to practice the teachings of this book. But again, now this book, and you have to read this book several times. What he's talking about here, what do adults, kids don't do this very often. But adults, what happens? We're continually talking about what we don't like. We're continually complaining about our life. These are two basic things that people do all day long. All day long. That keeps them, it brings it right back to them. It keeps them in the same poverty consciousness. That's what he's talking about. He says people must be taught to become rich by creation and not by competition. Remember, we've been talking about a competitive mind versus a creative mind. He brings it up again. He says people must be taught to become rich. Listen to this. People must be taught to become rich by creation and not by competition. Remember, he says nobody can become rich by competition. And then he says, remember, he says, even if they do become rich by competition, they will lose it if they don't figure it out. That's what he's saying. You might try to disagree and debate. Well, Chad, I know people that got rich by a competitive playing, being competitive. But see, along the way, at one point, they figured it out. Maybe that's how they first started making the millions on a competitive nature. But eventually, they figure it out. They have to become a creative. They have to use a creative mind, not a competitive mind. Because if they don't figure it out, what Wallace is saying is that they're going to lose it. Eventually, it's going to come to them and it's going to be taken away. That's the competitive plane. You have it one day and you don't the next. Then he says, every person who becomes rich by competition kicks down the ladder by which he or she rises and keeps others down. Wow, that's powerful. That's exactly what we are doing. He says, every person who becomes rich by competition kicks down the ladder by which he or she rises and keeps the other person down. See, that's directly when we're competitive. That's directly what happens in business. When you go in to consult businesses and departments or whole infrastructure, that's exactly what people are doing. They're trying to rise up and get promoted by competitive nature, but they're kicking down the ladder to keep people down. Exactly what they're doing. But the person who gets rich by creation opens a way for thousands to follow and aspires them to do so. Listen, the person who gets rich by creation, by a creative method, by the creative mind, opens a way for thousands to follow and aspires them to do so. You are not showing hardness of heart or an unfeeling disposition when you refuse to pity poverty or to think or talk about it or to listen to those who talk about it. Use your willpower to keep your mind off the subject of poverty and to keep your mind fixed with faith, belief, and purpose on the vision of what you want. See, this is what it comes down to. You should always be thinking about what you want, what you like, what you want to do, instead of thinking about what you don't like, what you don't want to do, what others are doing. See, we're doing the reverse. See, what's happening is you're following the laws right now. You're really doing exactly what Wallace is talking about in this book, no matter if you're aware of it or not. But we're using it in the reverse. We're using it to hinder us than to help us. That's exactly what he's saying here. Listen, use your willpower to keep your mind off the subject of poverty and to keep your mind fixed with faith, belief, and purpose on the vision of what you want. See, with kids, young teenagers, very young adults often get what they want. The reason why? Think about what they're doing. Think about, if you have children, think about what they're doing, what they like, what they're really into. That's all they're focusing on. That's all they're talking about. They're not continually talking about what they don't like, what they don't want. All they're concerned about is what they want, what they like. They only want to do things they like. And they end up achieving those things. Now, somewhere in adulthood, when we become older, we lose sight of that. And it flips. And we're doing the same habit, but we're focused on different details. Now, let's move to chapter 10. Chapter 10, again, is on the will. This is the expanded edition of the will. Chapter 10 is called The Further Use of the Will. And he says, you cannot retain a true and clear vision of wealth if you are constantly turning your attention to opposing pictures. This is what we've just been talking about. This is how chapter 9 ended. He says, you cannot retain a true and clear vision of wealth if you are constantly turning your attention to opposing pictures, either externally or in your imagination. See, most of the time, we're using our imagination, but we're using it to hinder us. We're constantly thinking about what we don't want, what we don't like about other people. Then our imagination kicks in. Or some of us kind of have a negative view how certain situations are going to work out. They haven't occurred yet, but they have it playing in their imagination. Make sense? Let me give you an example. Maybe, and I used to have a problem with this. Sometimes if I'm not careful, my mind will lead down that way. Maybe you're going to a restaurant. And besides thinking positive, we're going to get there on time. They're going to check us in right away. We're not going to have to wait. We're going to be sitting in the best location in the restaurant. But sometimes you make reservations, you don't know where you're going to sit. But sometimes, you kind of have a negative Nancy somewhere in your mind, you might be thinking to yourself in your imagination, and you might be thinking, well, I bet you when we go and get a table, they're going to sit us in a worse place. They're going to sit us in a worse section because it's always busy on Friday. So you always then in your imagination, you're thinking of sitting in the worst section of the restaurant. You're thinking of sitting, where you don't want to sit. And you have your imagination going. Then you have the emotions going. And it hasn't even happened. But what happens? Lots of times it happens to you. Lots of times you go there and that's exactly what happened. Because that's what you put your attention with. You got your imagination going. Then you got emotional about it. See, we're doing these laws no matter if you're aware of it or not. But you have to start using the laws for your benefit, for your own good. And he continues, this is great advice. He continues, do not tell others of any past financial troubles. Do not think of them at all. Do not tell anyone about the poverty of your parents or your hardships of your early life. To do any of these things is to mentally class yourself with the poor for the time being. And this will certainly check the moment of things in your direction. And he quotes, and this comes from the Bible again, and he quotes, let the dead bury the dead. Let the past be in the past. See, we're constantly living in the past. We're constantly bringing stuff up that happened to us 10 years ago. Then what he's saying here, once we bring it up, once we talk about it, if we're talking about it to another person, maybe we're just thinking about it. What he's saying is, once we start talking about our past troubles, our past financial troubles, anything negative that happened to us, anytime we talk about it, in our imagination, our mind, it's like it just happened to us. We're putting ourselves in that moment of time. we're putting ourselves right back in that situation. Like it just happened, it just occurred. That's why he says, let the dead bury the dead. Let the past be the past. It's the past. Stop thinking about it. Stop talking about it. Stop remembering it. But he says, but the poverty and all things that pertain to poverty completely behind you. This is what he's saying. Put poverty and all things that pertain to poverty completely behind you. Do not think about it. Chapter 9, he's saying, do not think about it. Do not concern yourself with it. Do not research it. Do not be involved with organizations that teach it. Do away with it and put it completely behind you. And I love this quote on the next page. He said, you should interest yourself in the world's becoming rich. You should interest yourself in the world becoming rich. That's the only, in here, what he's talking about, the science of getting rich, in these couple chapters, he's really talking about, how we don't help the poverty. We don't help the poverty consciousness. We don't help people that's in lack of money by reminding them they're in poverty, by reminding them of mental images of poverty. We help them by what? What did he say in the last chapter, in chapter 9? We help them by putting mental pictures of wealth in their mind. To start thinking wealthy instead of constantly poverty. And he gives us some homework. And I bet you love homework. And it's what I've been saying and preaching in these courses all the time, especially with these book studies. He says, read this book every day. Keep it with you. Commit it to memory. Do not think about other systems and theories. If you do, you will begin to have doubts and to become uncertain and wavering in your thought. Then you will bring negative thought to the formless substance. See, we do this all the time. And I'm going to give you an excellent example what everybody does. And you're going to be able to relate to this. And it probably happened to you before you even started the Power Wealth membership. I'll read this one more time, and I'll put in a side comment. He said, read this book every day, keep it with you, and commit it to memory. Do not think about other systems or theories. See, this is where we start falter. We start thinking about other systems and theories rather than staying with one system, staying with one theory until we master it. If you do, you will begin to have doubts and you will become uncertain and wavering in your thoughts. See, he said, if you do, you will begin to doubt what you're doing, and you will begin to have doubt in your thoughts and negative thoughts. See, this is what we do. This is human nature. See, people get excited. People get excited when they want to do something new. They get excited in personal achievement, no matter what it is. It could be personal achievement, personal development. It could be anything. It could just be a sport, something you're really into. See, they get excited, and what happens with that excitement? So you want to tell everybody about it. Then you run around and you tell everybody about it. But more chances than not, what happens? Some people will be excited for you, but most of them will not. Most of them will be like negative Nancy's. Why are you doing that? And they'll have their own opinion. Well, you should do this over here, or you should do this, or I want to do this. Then what those types of sayings, comments to you, what Wallace is saying will cause doubt. Put doubt in your mind, and that what happens? Doubt leads to what? Doubt leads to negativity. Doubt leads to negative thought. Then you start questioning it. Oh, well, you're probably right. Then you don't do it. You throw in a towel. See, we do this every day, if you're aware of it or not. That's why I'm saying you have to stay aware of what you're doing. And he ends this chapter, and he gives us a review, and I'll read it to you because it's powerful. He says, there is this thinking stuff from which all things are made, in which in its original state permeates and penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces a thing that is imagined by the thought. You can form things in your thought, and by impressing your thought upon the formless substance, can cause the thing that you think about to be created. In order to do this, you must pass from the competitive to the concretive mind. You must form a clear mental picture of the things you want, and you must hold this picture in your thoughts with a fixed purpose to get what you want. And the unwavering faith, unwavering belief that you will get what you want. Closing your mind against all that may tend to shake your purpose, dim your vision, or quench your faith or belief. And in addition to all this, we shall now see that we must live and act in a certain way. And I'll end this chapter with this. And in addition to all this, we shall now see that we must live and act in a certain way. What I want you to do, give you one more homework assignment, is print this last section out at the end of the chapter. Read it every day until you have it memorized and it's deep in your thoughts, and sooner or later it becomes habit. This is what we're after. Because once it becomes a habit, that's what you're continually thinking about. And I'll see you in the next unit.